to 354 in the Saints hymnal, since Jesus came into my heart. Let's do the first, third, and fifth verse. 354.
Push the red button. Push it again. Okay.
Morning.
Morning.
Good to see everyone here today. We do have some of our group that's visiting Modesto, so we're a little bit light today with some of our brothers and sisters. Probably mostly in our Spanish meeting a little bit later, but we pray that all the good news in Modesto. I haven't heard from any others. And you know that Christina Paxton is involved with some schoolwork that she needs to do. Aiden wasn't feeling quite at the bar this morning, so just be safe, he's at home. But keep everyone in prayer. We know we're still going through these trying times, and everybody has some issues in their home. And surely it's not your home, somebody you know. So we want to raise everybody up in prayer.
Maricela Shorty, her husband died last time.
That's right. Sister Maricela, she hasn't been with us for a while. She lives in Fresno. We call her Shorty. Her husband was in the hospital with complications. He was diabetic, and then was it COVID that actually?
No.
It was just diabetic, and his organs shut down. He passed away Meeting's going to be open. I think Brother Ryan, you going to open? Oh, Brother Ryan or Brother Sal, somebody will introduce the service this morning. We haven't discussed that, but we know that already. So why don't we all rise?
Lord, we found in your presence this morning. We thank you for the opportunity to be here, Lord, and we pray for those who aren't here. And those who might be traveling, Father, that either way, Lord, that you would keep them safe and provide for them, Lord. Those who are not feeling well, I pray, Lord, that you lift their spirits and heal their bodies, Lord. And I pray that you would be with our sister Marcella, Lord, that she lost her husband. Pray, God, that you would fill that void with your love, that she might be able to get through this trying time in her life, Lord. We pray, God, that you would be with Brother Ryan, those who will speak to us today, Father, that your Spirit might rest upon them, that we might enjoy the message that was given from your throne. So, Lord, be with us all today, and we ask your blessings upon us in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Good morning, brothers and sisters.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure to be in the house of God today and to be here. And as you can see, Rocco's with us today, and so he missed a year of church being at home. He could be Zooming and running around TV in his diaper, and so it's like he needs to learn to be back at church. So I ask you for your patience now, and Grandma, as she just help him to whisper and get back. But he was very excited to come to church today, and so we want our kids to be. And so my topic this morning is, are you clipped in? And that's going to make sense to you, hopefully, in the next few minutes. I pray that, my brothers will be able to follow up and bring the message home. So looking at Robbie up there and Bruce, you know what I'm talking about. Clipping in with a bike. So we bought, Elizabeth and I, we made it a choice. We bought a Peloton last week, or a couple weeks ago, and it came. And Elizabeth got on it first, and she learned it, and she was able to teach me. I was strategic in that way. Like, you figure how it works, and teach me. So Friday, I got home from work early. We had a minimum day, and I said, okay, I need to do my first ride. And those of you who know me know I don't like bikes. You think back to Memorial Day, somewhere in the 90s, on Memorial Day picnic in Bell, I crashed into somebody. I still say it's Robbie and Mikey's fault, but they'll deny it, And so since then, I try to avoid bikes. I want to do triathlon, but the biking part scares me the most. And so you had to get clipped in, and so you're on this thing, and you get your shoes on. You got to first get I don't know what the red part's called. You got to buckle it in, attach it to the ball of the shoe. Then the shoe hurts to get on in the first place. All those straps. So in my mind, I'm using every excuse I can to not do this, but okay, finally do it. And then clipping on the first time was man, if you had a camera in our garage, I would have wanted money for the funny home videos. It practically fell off. It's so hard, the way you got to clip your angle. And but once you're clipped in, you are locked. You are locked in. There's no escaping it. And I did that yesterday. I did it Friday. Did it yesterday, and I had a much better day too. And as I'm going on, I'm doing this 20-minute thing yesterday, and the fact that I was clipped in, I couldn't stop. I couldn't escape it. Your mission was to do this 20-minute ride, and unless you were physically going to stop the bike, unclip, get off, which is takes this effort, you were doing it. It was easier to keep going, to work through it, than to not. And then after I was done, I was thinking about, okay, I did it, much better the second day. A spiritual sense hit me, are you clipped into the Lord? And are you, not that we're trying to escape, but are you so locked in that you're on your mission, you're just going, that there's no stopping you, that you're just moving forward. And the trainers in these videos, and I had a different one each day, from these videos you choose from, you could tell there's a psychological thing in there. And they kept saying, you did the most important thing, you clipped in. You clipped in. You chose to put your shoes on, you clipped in, you're here. You're doing it. And I thought about that spiritually, every day do we clip in? Do we show up in the morning? Do we get ready? Do we put our boots on? Spiritually speaking, our shoes? Do we take the time to clip in and say, Lord, I'm just fighting with you today. I'm going to make it. I'm going to go through. clipped in, how their life was, and versus when they were clipped in, how their life was. And so I'm going to go to Acts chapter 9. It's a very common, the account of Saul when he was converted to Paul. Okay. And I think about our mission. Like on that bike, the mission is fitness. Like I'm going to clip in, I'm going to ride for 20 minutes or not, try to get my heart rate up and be healthier. And thinking about Saul, called to a mission, just wasn't recognized yet. He was, not clipped in, you could say. So chapter 9, we're going to read just a few verses. I'll start at verse 1. And Saul, yet breathing out threatenings and slaughter against the disciples of the Lord, went unto the high priest, and desired of him letters to Damascus to the synagogues, that if he found any of this way, where there were men or women, he might bring them bound into Jerusalem. And as he journeyed, he became near Damascus, and suddenly there shined round about him a light from heaven. And he fell to the earth, and heard a voice saying unto him, Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? And I was thinking, in this first portion of when we meet Saul, he's living a life unclipped. He's not clipped into what the Lord has for him. He's doing his own thing. He thought he was right in persecuting the church, the new Christians, but he missed the mark. It wasn't his calling. It wasn't what he was meant to do. It wasn't the goal for his life. And the Lord had to knock him down literally in this portion here. And I was thinking about it yesterday. Elizabeth went to go run an errand. She said, make sure your phone's close to you in case I fell off the bike and you can find me on the floor. Because once you're clipped in, there's no escaping. You are in it. You are committed. And Saul needed that conversion. He needed that moment to become clipped in. And so the Lord literally stopped him in his tracks. There's you're not biking in the way I want you to bike. You're not going where I want you to go. And verse 5, and he said, Who art thou, Lord? And the Lord said, I am Jesus, whom thou persecutest. It is hard for thee to kick against the pricks. And he trembling and astonished said, Lord, what wilt thou have me do? And the Lord said unto him, Arise, and go into the city, and I shall told thee what thou must do. Okay? And from that portion on, we know the story. So he goes in, he finds Ananias, and he's converted. There's a period where he can't see. He's in this state of just the Lord's working with him, changing his soul. And once he comes out of it, he's baptized, and most of the New Testament after that is Paul just changing. His name's changed from Saul to Paul, and he goes and just changes the world. And you think about how much of the new church was based on Paul's teachings of Christ and his work. And once he was baptized and committed and clipped into the Lord, there was no stopping him. Even when he probably wanted to stop and get off, he didn't. He just kept going because he was connected to his mission. And I think in life for us, we go through some times, and when you're biking, there's these, I'm in my garage, I'm in a flat surface, but they have you adjust the settings so you're climbing a hill. And Robbie and Bruce, who bike and all these things, it was all new to me, the experience of it. But just by changing a couple knobs, in the setting gets harder, you have to work harder to go up those hills. And I think Paul gives us a good example. And how many times was he cast out of cities, thrown in jail, shipwrecks, so many trials along the way. But a common theme in all of it is that he never stopped. He just kept going. Even though he had that thorn in his side, he asked the Lord to take it away 3 times, and God said, no, this is your lot in life, but then keep going. He never gave up and just kept going. And so I take such comfort from Paul's testimony and example to us that even though it seems like our challenge is, man, I'm not going to make it through. I want to unclip. I want to give up. I want to quit. We just keep going. Just like the Apostle Paul, he gives us that example. Thinking of other examples of people unclipped versus when they're clipped in. But if Alma had a similar conversion, this is Alma the Junior. Even the 4 sons of Mosiah, they were, I think in another way, different than Paul. Saul was a learned man. He was a Benjamite. He had trained. He had some prestige in the Jewish faith. But so he thought he was doing right. But here's Alma Jr., as we call him, Alma the younger. His dad was Alma, chief priest. He was born and raised from a young kid into this realm of, he knew right from wrong from the beginning. He knew, he probably seen the writing on the wall. My dad's Alma. There's a high expectation for me. And same thing for the 4 sons of Mosiah. Your dad's King Mosiah, a great king. Your grandfather's King Benjamin. Like, there's an expectation, if you choose to accept. And they weren't. And the Lord got involved again, and for Alma Jr., same similar Saul, knocked him down and worked with him and converted, and Alma, from there just kept the church going and did so many great works, as we've read about many times. I think of Jonah. It's funny how we have so many children's books of Jonah. We read Jonah probably every other day at some point, some version of it. So he's on my mind a lot. And I think about he was called to do something, and he chose not to. He was trying to run away, bike in the other direction, you could say. And the Lord got involved and stopped him in his tracks in the ocean, in the belly of the whale for 3 days, to really change him and say, you know what? This is not what I have for you. I need you to flip in and go this direction. And then Jonah finally did, and the city of Nineveh was blessed because of it. So, my message this morning is, are we doing what we're supposed to be doing each and every day? Are we focusing on the Lord? Are we biking, in my metaphor here, are we biking at our best potential, not giving up, pushing forward, even when you're going up a hill, hard interval, no matter what it is, are you clipped in and going with the Lord? I'm going to read another set of verses in Matthew chapter 11. And this goes into what I talked about a few weeks ago. Remember when I talked about that Hallmark movie about the 27-hour day and trying to cram so much in? My mom referenced that book that someone gave her about, it's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. So she let me borrow it, and I've been reading it since that sermon. I'm almost done. Probably have it done by Wednesday, hopefully, so you can take it for your trip. But it's been really eye-opening. And one of the main verses in there that he's referencing is Matthew 11, 28 through 30. Again, these are verses that we read all the time, but we stop and talk about them. And it says, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." I'm going to focus on, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." And thinking about that, and this verse came to me also when I was thinking about this thing, okay, are we clipped in for the Lord? So think back to the old days, and I'm sure still parts of the world use it. What is a yoke used for oxen? What is the point of it? It's to keep them together. They shoulder the burden together, and they're, if one's going this way, the other person can pull them back. It's restricted in a way to focus on your mission. And it's like 2 are easier than 1 to carry the load. And Christ is saying, yoke yourself unto me. Let's shoulder this burden together side by side. Go with me here. I'm going to keep you where you need to be going. If you try to stray, my yoke is going to pull you back a little bit. We're going to be on that path. And I was thinking about that with the bike metaphor. I couldn't go astray. I was attached. And I think spiritually, if we are attached to the Lord and so close to Him, living with Him and listening and following His directions, just like that coach on the show or on the app, okay, increase your resistance, go down, go up, saddle up, all these different things that are all new to me. But as I think about it spiritually, if we listen to the Lord in our day-to-day life and follow in and we clip into Him, we're able to, make our journey and get to our destination. And I'm going to close with some practical advice, I hope. I'm going to go to Ephesians. And this is how you clip in each and every morning. Maybe Bible, but it's not. Okay. All right. Ephesians 6, armor of God. Something that we think about often, but it's so important that we do this mentally each and every day. It's similar to if I'm going to go on that bike, I got to take the time, I sit down, I got to put the shoes on, I have to do the process. So every morning, are you doing these things, spiritually speaking? Verse 10, "Finally, my brethren," this is Paul speaking, who I referenced earlier. So this is how he lived his life and was able to stay so focused and committed to his mission. "Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of His might. Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore, take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to stand in the evil day, and having done all to stand. And so before we go into that, Paul sets the stage relatively clearly. We're fighting against these temptations, these devils, these evil things in our life. And so every day, are you clipping in? Are you getting ready to be focused and determined? And, for me, like when I was on the bike, my mind is saying, oh, you're hurting, that bike seat hurts. Like, no, I've never had that pain, kind of get used to it. No cushion's going to help that. But it was like, I wanted to quit. I wanted to get off. But spiritually, there are times we might feel down and want to get off the spiritual bike as well, but we can't. We have to clip it and put on the armor of God. And here's that armor. Verse 14. Stand therefore, having your loins girded about with truth, having the breastplate of righteousness, truth, righteousness, and your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. And above all, taking the shield of faith, wherefore you shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, and watching thereunto with all perseverance and supplication for all the saints. So he gives us a formula each day, how we buckle up and clip in, putting on the peace, truth, salvation, the word of God. So are we living in the word? Are we preparing each day? Are we yoked to the Lord, so that when we're wanting to go astray and quit and go off the path, he brings us back? So my encouragement this week is every morning to make it, I was in a seminar once, and I think the elder said, we literally don't put on helmets and breastplates, but as you're getting ready in the morning, have that visual in your mind, like, Lord, I'm getting ready for the day. I'm getting myself suited up to go out in this world and to clip in and be a servant and a saint and be that example. So this week, think about whatever can you do each day to stay more committed, to clip into the Lord, and keep going on your mission. So may God bless you this morning.
Bless you, brother.
Enjoy your brother's message. Hopefully I have just a few comments to add. Most of us in this room, if not all of us, learned to ride a bike at some point in our lives. I find a few adults here and there that never learned it, but for the most part, we've all learned at one point how to keep a two-wheel bike upright and not fall, right? So, to use our brother's example of the Peloton or his fear of riding a bike in that way, if I could peel that apart for just a minute, I think you learn how to ride a bike at some point in your life. So the idea of staying upright on two wheels is not really probably a big concern for most of us. We can do that. When you start looking at different types of bikes, and as he's mentioning, when you start considering that there's a type of bike or a type of mechanism that you strap your feet in so that you can't readily take them off those pedals, that's a whole different thing now. You kind of forget that, I know how to keep the bike upright and go in a straight line or turn left and right. But this idea of my feet being strapped in has got me all confused and scared, because some of my freedom is missing, so to speak. I can't just quickly stop myself from going one way or the other. I can't drop it off. So if I kind of bring that around to the analogy that our brother made, the Lord says, if we go back to his verses in Matthew, in that one verse he read, take my yoke upon you. And then if you read 30, if I split it apart, it says, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So if we equate that to riding the bike, everyone can do that. The way of the Lord, he's telling us it's not hard once you take that responsibility upon you, once you make that commitment with me. Riding the bike is not the hard part. But when you you start talking about the Peloton and different types of road bikes that you use to maybe try and start climbing the hills, and those, all of a sudden there becomes a lot of technique involved. Now the idea of riding a bike clipped in, and I'll tell you, I've done it, and I've ridden up a hill, and I got so tired that I stopped riding up the hill, and I couldn't get my feet out in time, and I just fell over like it was like a meme on the computer. I rode, slow down, stop, bang. And there was nothing I could do because I was so tired. So the idea is not strange to be concerned or worried or scared about the process of riding the bike. Now I want to go back to, I want to make that distinction. Riding the bike is not hard. Keeping it up on two wheels, going straight, turning left, turning right, not a problem. But when you start adding complexity like clipping in, like our brother talked about, there's concern for worry. It's a different field. There's less movement. You have less freedoms. Spiritually, though, I want to go back to that verse number that our brother read. Take my yoke upon you. And to me, the most important part of this verse is what I'm going to read right now. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me. We have to take the time to learn how to do what is easy. The yoke of the Lord is easy. Whether we overcomplicate it or whether the process becomes difficult by the way we ride our bike, the way we're clipped in now, and it's a worry and concern. We need to take the time in our lives to learn the ways of God, to learn the process, and then the yoke becomes easy. If we don't take the time to learn, you might always have a fear of that bike or that type of bike. I hope that you overcome the fear so that you can do that triathlon. Because once you're not afraid of it, once you know there's just a couple extra steps to get my foot off of that pedal so that if I have to, and the fact of the matter is, you still might go down, and that's just part of the game. That's just part of the deal. Hopefully you're not going to hurt yourself too bad, and things will be okay. But the key today, for me, when I listened to what our brother said, and I loved it, was that we must take the time to learn. Just like he's learning how to ride that Peloton, and day 2 was a lot easier than day 1, and it's going to continue to get easier to learn how that thing works. The thing that's going to get harder is the workouts are going to get a little bit more complex. But once we take the time to learn what the Lord has for us, the Lord's intent is that following and serving Him and staying clipped in is easy. It's at least easier with the Spirit of God in us than without us. So I pray that we learn from this today, that we've all, I'm looking around, just about every one of us have understood and we've taken upon us that we've clipped in. And I think most of us have probably learned, but the thing is, we have to continue to learn what the Lord wants for us in our lives. So may God bless you.
Brothers have been generous with their time and enjoyed the message. I'm just going to take a couple minutes as well, if you don't mind. I remember when Ryan was little, he wasn't too thrilled about a bike, but we went across the street to the schoolyard. Remember that, Ryan? To learn how to drive, ride the bike. And, we were in a pretty open area, with a lot of school ground, asphalt. And we're going, and he's going, and all of a sudden I noticed that he's striving towards a brick building. I tried to catch him, but I think, did you crash into him?
Probably.
It was just a little accident. So him and bikes have not been the pedestrian, but I'm sure now that he's learned this new Peloton will be good. And I love what Justin said, and Brother Ryan is bringing on either, but my mind went a little different direction when he said clipped in. I didn't quite know where he was going with that until he mentioned the bike. I would be very intimidated with that. I know that Justin's done it, Bruce and Rocky, we've all done it. And that scares me. When I watch those races, like, what's that big one in France? So, whatever. But, just numerous riders, and they're all going so close and just one little thing, and then they're attached to that by they just go flipping. Talk about courage. I mean, I'll tell you that. I could not do that, to be honest with you. But I was thinking about being attached, like you said, attached to the Lord, yoked to the Lord. And my mind went to, just for some reason, my mind went to the Apostle Paul, as he mentioned. And Paul said on numerous occasions, he said, I, Paul, a prisoner of Jesus Christ. And you know, he wasn't saying that in a derogatory. We say prisoner, that has a bad connotation because you've done something wrong to be put into jail, to be incarcerated. You're a prisoner. You're a marked man. You've got to do some restitution. You've got to pay for what you did. But he used it in a different way. He said, I, Paul, I am a willing prisoner to Jesus Christ. And a prisoner, sometimes I think of the old days. Not now, but the old days, and watch these movies. You see a prisoner, especially if they're on a chain gang, and they're outside working. They've got a big heavy ball and a chain, right? Like this. I see Brother Dave here, and Dave's been working with me for a long time. I've never said this to Dave, I don't think. I hope not. Maybe I did. But if my employees are upset with me, and just in a nice way, I would say it's a free world. There's no chain and ball on your leg. If you need to go, let's part with friends, you know? But that's just another story. But Paul was attached to Jesus Christ that way. I mean, it was fine. He loved having that attachment. He was, I'm not going anywhere. And he also said, in Philippians, he said, Brethren, I count not myself to have apprehended, but this one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind, and reaching forth unto those things which are before. And as Brother Ryan and Brother Bishop said, when Saul was converted and became Paul, the disciple and the prisoner of Christ, he wasn't looking back, not on all his credentials, as we said, because he had many credentials. He wasn't looking back on his failures or even his successes. He said, I am going forward. Nothing in my past life is going to bother me. And that was the same thing when the sons of Mosiah and Alma were converted. They had the same thing. We made a lot of mistakes. And talk about being so joyful and happy and thankful. Because even when they went out and preached, remember when Ammon was joined in what they had accomplished? And his brother said, I fear, brother, that you're boasting. He said, no. I'm not boasting in us. I'm boasting in what the Lord has done. He says, can you think? Can you just imagine where we were? How bad we were going around destroying the churches. Could you ever have thought that God could convert us and use us in a way to be tools out here and bring so many souls to Christ? It's not about me. It's about Jesus Christ. They became prisoners of Christ. They gave up the kingdom. They gave up riches, as did Paul, as did Lehi, as did Amulek, as they all did. Because those things weren't important anymore. Not looking back, they were looking forward. And I also thought of Elijah and Elijah. You know the story of Elijah, the great prophet. And Elijah had kind of saw Elijah working in the field and went over there and called him. And at that point, Elijah knew that I have a calling, not knowing how it was going to work out. But he knew he had to be with Elijah. He wanted that blessing. And he wanted something special. You know, he wanted a special blessing. I wanted a double portion of Elijah. And I admire men like that. Because when you ask for something like that great a blessing of God, that means you're not looking back. Whatever your life was before, whatever pleasures you had in your natural life, you're saying, I'm giving them up. Because I'm all in. I'm all clipped in for the Lord. And I want a double portion so I can do as much as Elijah, and if God wills, even more. And so it came a point in time where Elijah said, Elijah, I'm going to go over here to Bethel. You stay here, and then I'll come back. Right? When Elijah says, no, as the Lord liveth, I will not leave thee. And my soul liveth thee, so I will not leave you. And then he said a second time, I'm going to go here. And then he said, I'm going to go to Jericho. I think 3 times he said that. But Elijah was attached to Elijah. You could say he was attached at the hip because he did not want to forego that blessing. And because of that persistence, Elijah up in a whirlwind. The mantle fell upon Elijah. And Elijah went and he struck that water and it parted. And where's the God of Elijah? And that double portion came upon him. And all the sons of the prophets knew that this is the new man in town, so to speak. And one last thing, talking about really wanting to do more. And when you're attached to the Lord, you always want to do more. Alma said, I wish I had the voice of an angel, that I could go and preach from the rooftops to the whole world. What a desire. He was already doing a lot for the Lord. Some of us say, well, I've done enough. I've been in the church all this time. I do this. I go to church. I do this. That's enough. That's enough. Brothers and sisters, yeah, there's moderation even in our service to the Lord. But don't get comfortable where you're at. There's no ceiling on your spirituality. There's no ceiling what you can do for the Lord. And the more you want to do for the Lord, the closer you're attached to Him, you will reach spiritual highs that you never thought you could go to, because on your own you couldn't. But if your desire is to do that for the Lord, now listen, I want to preach to the whole world. And he said, sorry, Lord, I sin in my desire. I don't think he was sinning. I think he just had a great desire. I think the Lord said, that's admirable, Alma. But then Alma came to a sense and said, Lord, I know, I got my space and time. I'm going to work here. And I know you're ahead of me, God, that you're going to raise up men around the world to preach your gospel in their own tongue. And we see that today when we go out and preach in different parts of the world. We're going, a lot of them speak English, they speak different languages. But our goal as a church, as a missionary church, we go out, we want to establish churches, we want to ordain ministers to preach in their own tongue. Because we all know that being a multicultural branch, it's always nice to hear it, in your tongue. So, brothers and sisters, if you're not attached to the Lord, get closer. Get closer. It's all, know what it requires? It requires a desire and a commitment. And you will accomplish it. May God bless you. Bruce, could you come up and lead a song for us? I want to sing just 3 verses of that 289. I'm sorry, 89. This is about the Apostle Paul. Let's just sing 1, 3, and 5.
Yeah.
Both hands or just one?
Many times we come to church and we have a sermon, and one individual takes a subject and introduces it, elaborates on it, and then we sing a hymn, have a closing prayer, and that's it. But we had a little dinner here today. A little bit of this and a little bit of that, and all in the same spirit, all in the same vein, and all the brothers are able to speak today. They all limited themselves to just a few pertinent words that added to the main subject that was introduced. And it was a subject of flipping in, getting on board with the Lord. And that's what we all need to do. We all need to flip in. And it was a story of preparation, preparing yourself before, before I would go to an exercise, I would do some warm-ups. I would stretch my muscles over the years, and especially when I was younger and I would get out there running all the time, I'd have to stretch my muscles before I actually got into the work of the exercise. And so we have to do that with each other sometimes. And we have to support each other many times. And we have to just look to the Lord for that guidance. And the subjects that came up that all add to this fruit, to the little meal that we had today, that teaches us the principles of serving God. Just wonderful. This is wonderful. So I enjoyed it. Do I have a dessert? I don't know. What can the Lord give us? We do have to have a goal in mind. We have to have a goal in mind. Whether it be if you get on that bike because you want to limber up, you want to lose some weight, you want to get your muscle tone in store. But Christ gave us a goal. He gave us a goal of salvation. And he said, in John, he said, in my house there are many mansions. And I go there to prepare a place for you. We're all rich. We're all rich. We've got an inheritance with God. And it's because we clipped in, because we did the preparation, we did our muscle tone along the way, we faltered once in a while, ran into that wall, and tried to ride that bike, and it didn't work out in the direction we wanted it to be. But we recovered. We recovered. And as the Apostle Paul said, he's run the race. And we're all running the race. We're all doing the right thing. And if we falter, we just get up and do it more. We just get up and do it better. We just get up and just rededicate ourselves. Rededicate ourselves to the ways of the Lord. And sometimes we have to get the book up. If you're not familiar with how to ride that Peloton bike, sometimes you get the instructions out. You got to say, what do I do when this happens? Or how do I increase my speed or the tension or other things that relate to that? Well, we have an instruction book. We have two of them. In here, it tells us what if. It tells us what if something happens along the way that I need some more advice. I've got the armor on, I'm prepared. But life throws you curves. Life throws you things that you don't expect from time to time. We've all been there. We've all caught the Spirit of God and sought His direction. And we are all faithful. We've got a group of people here that have been faithful to the Lord. Faithful to the dedication, to the commitment they made to serve God in the right way. So I enjoyed all the words that were spoken today. I'm not going to elaborate anymore because maybe you can get 100 sermons out of this. But stick to the dedication that you've made. You purchased the equipment, and you got to use it. We have Lord purchased our salvation. We got to make good on that. We have to serve God with church, she wasn't going to complain because this is the day the Lord had made. You know, she wasn't going to complain. This is God's day. This is the way it's got to be. I enjoyed that. So here we are. God bless you. Stay hanging there. Don't give up. If your speed isn't just right, you can tilt one way or the other. You got to learn. Learn it. We're going to enjoy that service with God. And God bless you.
Amen.
Sale. I wonder, we still have time. I was, this is like a little, I used to call them smorgasbords. Nowadays they call them buffets, I guess. But it's good to feast our word of God. I'm thankful for the subject. Before we close our live stream, I want to make a couple of announcements. Next weekend, next Sunday is the 29th. The next weekend is going to be a little bit different here because, Brother Justin, you're going to be in the Southwest camp. You're going along with Brother Bruce, teaching a seminar there, so God bless you in that. And I and Diane will be in Irvine next week because Brother Jim Huttenberger and Brother Steve Kirby, the other two ministers, well, those two ministers, they're also going to be at the Southwest camp. And Brother Stacy Light, the third minister there, is going to be in Mexico with Brother Joel Gailey and his wife, and Brother Wayne Martirana and his wife, I should say Karen and Ruth, and Brother David Ariola, who's chairman of the Mexico committee. They're going to be there. They're going to have a conference of just the brothers of the ministry because they need to meet to do some business. But because of COVID again, they couldn't do that. But they're still going to have seminars, right? They have some training for the ministry there. So we pray for safe travel and then good success there because it's needed. So Brother Sal, God willing, and health-wise you'll be here next week, I think, and Brother Ryan will be here. So please come, those that are not going to be traveling to other locations. Please come and support the branch. And I think that's it. Like we mentioned last week, the new structure of our meetings is going to start till September, so we're okay with that. So unless I missed anything, brothers,